get folks on the phone connected.
Welcome to the GCI call. Thank you. Please stand by. If you are the chairman, please enter your chair. You will now be placed into conference. There are 4 participants in the conference.
Great, welcome everyone. We're on the item on the agenda that's Pledge of Allegiance. So if we can have Vice Mayor McClure lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Tonight's roll call: Afon,
Present.
Osenga, Kreitz,
Here.
McClure,
Here.
Butts,
Here.
Cease,
Here.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
You have a quorum.
Next on the agenda is citizen comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing.
Madam Mayor, sorry.
And I know it said we had 4 on the phone, so I'll just assume that the other person on the line is Holly Wells. Holly, are you on the line?
Yes, that's correct. It's me.
Great, thank you. Yes, so now we're to citizen comments. Thank you.
Okay, so we have 2 comments, and I will read them. The first is from Sheila Squires. It was my understanding there was paperwork for review which included the proposed rules, application outline, and agenda statement for tonight that was supposed to be sent to the business owners with a comment deadline of 2 p.m. today. It was not received by me in any shape or form, electronically from any source via email. This does not allow for small businesses who try to survive the winter and stay open to have any say in what is done or the process. As a business that requires that I physically work and not sit at a computer all day, I normally have one opportunity a day to sit down at the computer. Email is my main source of information. It is my feeling that if information is going to be sent, it should be sent in more than one forum. As a member of the chamber, I am disappointed that they did not put this out to their members, many of whom are small business owners who are unable to attend their meetings during the daytime due to the necessity to be at their business. These same small businesses have been severely impacted by this whole process with not being able to get any assistance in submitting or applying for other sources of revenue that were available because it was felt they were not worth the time and effort of the financial institutions administering the programs. That being said, I did receive a copy of the paperwork from someone else today at noon, from someone who is not connected to the chamber or the city. This did not leave me much time to review and meet the comment deadline of 2 p.m. That being said, I have reviewed the paperwork and proposed process, and I do not see anything that is disagreeable at this time. Here are my questions. Which department will be handling this grant program, as it is not specified in the plan, or the how to apply document? Is the same department if I have questions on the application, or will it be the grant committee as specified in the application? My hope is that the City of Seward will treat many of its smallest businesses who rely heavily on making enough during the tourist season to be able to stay open during the off-season with fairness and equal consideration. I will be watching the meeting tonight and look forward to seeing what decisions are made. And the second comment is from Tara Reamer, President and CEO of the Alaska Sealife Center, speaking to Resolution 2020-056. This resolution would allow the Alaska Sealife Center to accept an SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan in the amount of $150,000. This loan must be accepted by July 25th, or it will no longer be available. While we begin the application process for this loan in March, but did not know the collateral requirements until a few weeks ago. We are hoping to reach our fundraising goal without needing these loan funds. However, with the loan acceptance deadline next week, approach is to accept this loan and then pay it back if it is not needed. In any case, assuming we meet our fundraising goal, the loan would still provide short-term cash flow while other pledges are pending payment. If there are any questions tonight, I will be available, and she gives her phone number. Technical questions about SBA loans are better addressed to the CFO of the Alaska Sealife Center, Walter Young, who will also be available by phone tonight. She gives his number. Thank you again for your time and dedication to the people and businesses of the city of Seward. And that is it.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and consent agenda. Can I get a motion and a second, please?
I move for the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda.
Second it.
Thank you. Are there any changes, additions? I have one change that I'm going to make the motion and then I'll pass the gavel for a ruling from the vice chair. But I'm going to move that we put resolution 2020-056 on the consent agenda. And I'm passing the gavel because to bring up the fact again that I am on the Sealife Center board. I do not get any financial income from that board. And actually, again, my commitment is I donate to that center as opposed to getting any financial benefit. So I'll look for a ruling and then I'll speak to.
Okay, as I ruled the other night, I'll rule again that you have no conflict of interest on this, unless I hear an objection. Okay, and I'm passing the gavel back.
So so I think it can go on the consent agenda unless there's any objections. So is there any objections?
No.
Okay. So resolution 2020-056 is on the consent agenda. Are there any other motions at this time? Madam Clerk, can I call for a vote of the approval of the agenda and consent agenda?
Voting to approve tonight's agenda and consent agenda. Cease.
Yes.
Butts.
Yes.
Kreitz.
Yes.
Bachwan.
Yes.
McClure.
Yes.
And Mayor Terry.
Yes.
Your agenda is approved, and approved on tonight's consent agenda is Resolution 2020-056, authorizing the Seward Association for the Advancement of Marine Science to encumber a lien on the Alaska Sealife Center property, supporting a small business administration economic injury disaster loan.
Thank you. Now we're on to new business items. Resolution 2020-055. Madam Clerk, would you read that into the record?
Resolution 2020-055 is establishing a municipal recovery program, business economic relief grant, and nonprofit assistance program in response to the economic upheaval caused by the measures taken in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Is there a motion and a second?
I move for the approval of resolution 2020-055.
I'll second it.
Thank you. So I'll turn it over to you, City Manager Mazzaros, if you want to introduce administration's take on the resolution, please.
Sure. First of all, we have two changes that I would propose in the documents. It did sound like from citizens' comments there was some expectation that we mail or send out all of this agenda, which it's always posted in a public fashion that everything we do is done. I don't know why there was some assumption that we would do a different means, but that's the first time I've heard that.
Well, let me just check and make sure that when the program kicks off, you'll be doing the full court press for that and making
Correct.
sure businesses are aware and getting the word out at that point.
Correct. And,
Okay.
and some of that we likely will get in tonight is about, who's going to manage this, who's
Okay.
going to administer it. And Tim and I talked a little bit today. We do have some third-party ideas. I do think it's a heavy lift for our staff, but we do have an interim finance director that does have staff capable of doing that as well.
Okay.
So that's kind of built into the program. But the first
Yeah,
change...
and let me just say thanks, Tim Dillon, Cape Head, for being here. We very much appreciate it.
It's my home away from home.
Yeah, I know, we love you. Sorry, go ahead, Scott. Thank
Okay,
you.
so on page 9 of your packet, in the actual program details under businesses, there is a typographical error that, we'd corrected it numerous times, and yet the final product, it shows up as an incorrect number. And that's on tier 1. The amount that was directed and authorized to go into this packet was 50,000, not 20,000. So that is a typographical error on administration's behalf. I would state that, that would be recommended to be 50,000 as previously requested. And then on page 15, if you go to page 15, and that is the legal, it's on the frequently asked questions. And Tim brought this up this morning. So on number 2, it's an item that we would ask that be stricken. It says if they have not received more than $150,000 in federal Paycheck Protection Program PPP loans with proof of funding. So we would ask that the cap be eliminated. A lot of places around Alaska were doing 50,000, and that's just an item that Tim had brought to our attention. It doesn't really make sense to have a cap on that, and so we consulted with legal as well on that.
Okay, so let me so you're not striking in its entirety, you're just saying has not received federal payback protection program loans? No, you're striking in its entirety.
Strike it out completely.
Great, thank you, okay.
Bottom-
We're not gonna be looking to see what funding people have already got. This is a clean slate, they can apply, and go ahead, Mr. Dillon.
Well, the bottom line is, there's no reason why a loan
Yeah.
should affect
Exactly.
somebody being eligible
Yeah.
for a grant.
Yeah.
So when I
Yeah.
saw that, that's why I asked for it to be taken out.
Good, thank you, that's wonderful.
So those are 2 changes that we have just kind of going into this. So there is the resolution. So we did, administration, with the direction and input from the other communities, was to break it into the accepting the funds and separate out the programmatic issues, which is why you have this separate item, not included in what you did Monday night. So they are very clearly distinct and separated. So, I mean, it's kind of a process. This is our 3rd public meeting. It's probably the 12th or so meeting I've had on CARES Act with the subcommittee, budget committee, chamber. Tim's been here for several meetings. We met with the Sealife Center. We've met with the Community Foundation, several private business owners, several of the organizations, Boys and Girls Club. So just in general, this has been kind of de-simplified so that it's not very pointed. It's still very broad, and so it gives the authorization in the resolution. And I think one of the things that keeps recurring back to the city is what does CARES Act even mean? Originally, CARES Act was directed to Alaska municipalities for direct relief to combat their expenses in dealing with COVID. So I think when you look at this programmatic areas, the very first one is obviously city operations, and that's a big piece of it. Tim would probably better speak to this, but on the peninsula and in Juneau, it's been very different than what a lot of the other Alaskan communities are doing. A lot of them are like, okay, this is all going to fund emergency and police and EOC completely. The peninsula, it's been a push to try to get this into business owners, to try to split it into some individual efforts. And I think the way for us to do that, we'll get into the program areas, but we brought this forward. This was kind of what was directed to Kraft, and we copied it off of Kenai. We've had some navigational issues as we worked through this because they learned of some issues with individual funding and some other problems that we've taken out and modified. But essentially, this is the meat and potatoes that we started with. The sections have been modified a little bit. Our attorney, and we've had legal review, so there's been a lot of additions in the language so that we ensure everybody that gets any money from this needs to tie it back to impacts due to COVID-19. It can't be like additional surplus or warehousing or lost revenue. So we just want to be very clear, this isn't just a recovery to get full, as Tim previously put it. So that we did detail out in the program section the proposed care funding allocations. It's pretty wordy and lengthy. I don't know if you want to get into those details. I'll probably leave that to questions. So it's kind of up to you where we navigate from here. Most of this is pretty similar. We've made sure it complies better than what initially was presented. For the nonprofit piece, we have so few of them overall that it makes sense that a subcommittee we could do a request for proposals on Monday, call them, email them, send them a mailer, and actually reach out to all of them and get them to provide, what is your request and what would you do with the funding? And then that committee could look at the allocated budget funds we have and determine, what seems fair, would Community Foundation be the best place to redistribute it to those in the community, those other entities? So that piece is a lot easier to navigate than say like the other communities that have 200 of them or something like that. We really have a handful that would be probably easy to navigate and to make those determinations. So that piece is a little different. The business piece is still very prescriptive, and I know that legally there's some challenges with that because if you give everybody, so Homer did like a $3,000 check to every business. Well, when you get audited down the road, it's like, well, how did this business get impacted the same as everybody else that got the same amount of money? And so you really need to make sure that there's justification and explanation on that. But this does still stick to that 4-tier. So if you look at, if you pay $4,000 of sales tax in Seward, $50,000, that would be $2,000, and this is proposing $2,500, which is more than we would actually make. The borough set their cap at 3.5%. So it says up to, and that might be something you consider as, you probably wouldn't want to give a full return above what the business was actually paying in at full operations. But that's something to consider or something to kind of direct. I just want to bring that up because that was a key piece in Kenai's presentation was, if they're getting 4% tax and you give back 5%, it's just something to think about. But it is very prescriptive, so you can see how those are broken into the up to amounts. And it is intended to make sure they fill all the boxes out, meet the need, and then to distribute it based on those rules and outlines that were previously discussed in the last 2 meetings and are also still standing in that regulation. I'm trying to think of what else could hit on. I didn't break it out and discuss each check. I think it's clearer if the council says here's the budget for each of these sections. We can allocate those funds into those and track it through accounting. Here's how much is spent to date in this fund. When we get closer, if we don't utilize or expend funds, it'd be easier to actually go back and say, here's how much is left. If we set an opening date, say of Monday, and keep it open till September 25th, instead of doing like 2 weeks and then revisiting it, that might be another way to keep it open and ensure that we get everybody that is eligible or willing applied. And then hopefully it would dwindle off and you wouldn't have a continuous amount of applications, and then you could figure out, okay, from here, how do we readjust? Because that's essential in all these programs. You're not going to have a perfect estimate on who all applies and how much is going to be requested. So you do want to make sure, hey, if we set the budget at this and that's not attainable, or if it's utilized out and not, if it was, set, we're not going to expend more than what the budget is. That's just in common practices of how we operate. So it's important to know, hey, it's spelled out in here very clearly what the appeal process is, the fact that it is public record as to getting the check and who got it. There are tax implications. There are some fraud type things that can come back on you, and the city may, fraudulent issues are probably not prevalent, but you might have some that apply. That's like anything you do like this, there's some error in navigating that. I think I would like Tim to add some value if he has any ideas or if you're okay.
Tim, I'd love to hear from you if you have a couple comments.
Yeah, I think everybody on the peninsula, each of the different incorporated cities and the borough have done a tremendous job with taking a hard look at what can they do to help their community. A little bit of history and how some of this came about was I received a phone call back months ago from Paul Ostrander and Larry Persley. And their question was, Tim, you need to help us navigate through this of what we can use it for and how we want to use it, towards the future. And my concern with them was, you could take it one of two ways. You can either take all that money and dump it into programs that you need to fund and you want to fund right now, or you can look 3 years down the line and 5 years down the line and try and figure out, okay, if we don't help stand up some of these small businesses, what kind of a mess are we going to have in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? Because that tax base is going to erode. So the key was trying to find that balance. And I think as you look around the peninsula, all the cities have taken an approach of right at around 35% or so, somewhere 30 to 40% of their total amount that they received, they've allocated towards small business and nonprofits. Along the same line, the borough has done the same thing. They've got the 37 million and they're putting 15 million towards small business and nonprofits. I think when you start looking at the individual communities, everyone's a little different. And the reason Homer's is the $3,000 per, and that's it, is when Ken Castor and I sat down and we started looking at things, I don't know how, but they have 1,600 business licenses within their city limits. So we were trying to figure out, and he wanted to get the money on the street as quickly as possible. And we were trying to figure out process and getting the money out, and it was like, you need to keep this simple or else you're going to lose a mess of different businesses. So when their form is very, very simple, you just have to prove that you've been paying borough taxes, there's no lien there, and they're getting a $3,000 check. In Kenai, I can tell you they had their stuff open for 2 weeks, and they were looking at things as it came in, but then when it closed, they spent the next 5 days reviewing everything. On the 6th day, $1.9 million worth of checks went out. And whether it was $50,000 to the Challenger Learning Center or, monies towards the driving school or anybody else that had lost things. So I think this is an outstanding piece. You can go back and forth about why are you spending this, why are you spending that. Realistically, it's a philosophy. The city and the community are trying to help each other out. And the other part too is, and I really like the other 750,000 sitting there with the city resiliency and recovery, because we don't know what October is going to bring us. And I think it's very important that you have some dollars set aside, whether it be, I've said this over and over again, I'm concerned that I think the mental health part of this whole thing is going to be worse than the actual virus. Because by the time October rolls around and it starts getting dark and everything else, people are going to start saying, whoa, wait a minute, that business that I spent 35 years building is now gone, So I like the balance. I like, how the thing is put together. I also would say that I did have a discussion with the head of small business for the state of Alaska. And they may have the bandwidth to help with some of the administrative parts of reviewing grants, electronically, reviewing the applications and helping generate the checks. I told John that I would get back to him if there was any interest in that at all. But, they're a statewide organization and they could, handle things. The key that we all have to remember is the goal is to say yes. The goal is not to say no. The goal is to say yes and get this money in people's hands so that they can hopefully stand up. The Alaska Cares, as far as the small business, there's $290 million in there for small business. We're doing rather well on the Kenai Peninsula. As compared to the rest of the state, we are getting a nice big chunk out of that. And I hope that me continuing to come over and meeting with people and helping them with their applications, they're going to continue to get that. I can tell you, though, that out of the $290 million, if you took what Credit Union 1 has sent out so far, plus you added in all the applications that they have on file from the rural communities and from the metro communities, all those businesses, if you added those three numbers together, you're still less than $90 million. So you have over $200 million more to spend. So one of the things that I'm working on is with the legislature to get some openings of some things. You've got some of your neighbors here that haven't been able to apply for Alaska Cares because they got a PPP loan or they got an EIDL loan. So we're trying to fix all that. We will have it fixed. It's just a timing situation of when we'll get it fixed. So those monies are going to be out there for businesses too. And so if you guys are able to hit this one here the next couple of weeks and start getting those cranked out, then, we're in the middle of August. Then if we can hopefully get Alaska Cares fixed so that there's some more money in September, we're all going to make it through this, but it's going to be difficult. And, there's no one simple answer because no one's been through this before. We're just fortunate that we do have money that we can do this with. And again, is it perfect? No, it's not. But if you make sure that not only the council, but especially the administration and the clerk, get the word out, let people know what's going on. One of the things that I dealt with today was people asking me questions about this program, and they were so far off. I don't know where they were getting their information from, but it was nowhere close to being accurate. So I really want to make sure that with this, and when you sit there and you say that you've got X number of dollars for administration of the program, that needs to include public relations, that needs to include signage, that needs to include mailers and those kinds of things so that people know that those things exist. The cab driver that just brought me over today, he was like, I just keep hearing about some of the stuff that the city's going to do, but I don't know anything about any of this other stuff. So I'm going to meet with them tomorrow and try and help them. But that's what it's going to take. And I got to say thank you to Tony and to Christy. When you guys, I cringe sometimes when you put my name on or my phone number out there. But that's the reason I'm here, and these people are calling, and I think we're helping. So bottom line is, I think this is an outstanding plan and an opportunity. Is it perfect? No. Does it give you opportunities to fix things as you're moving along because you've got an appeal process and all? Yes, it does. So that's my 2 cents worth.
We'll go to questions.
I
Go ahead.
have one though.
Councilmember Cease.
I thought this had nothing to do with the PP loan. I thought that if you got the PPP loan, you were still going to be able to get this.
Get the cities?
Yes.
Correct, but you had a document, you had a spot in here that we just asked for change.
Yes.
Because on here, it said that if you got 150,000 or more, you weren't eligible. So that's why I wanted to get that out of there.
Most of my acquaintances didn't get that much, so.
I might just ask a quick question just to get your take on things. Which I hear the city manager, I do like that idea of, having it open for as long as possible so people have the opportunity. But what's your take, because you've seen a broader picture of, having a specific start and end date, get everyone in there, get everyone applied, get that money on the street as soon as possible?
It depends on the community, and it depends on what you guys want to do. I can tell you, Kenai, when they went out, they had their 2 weeks. Well, since then, they had 3 different plans in their back pocket, okay? And what they did was, after the first one was all done and they had sent out the 1.9 million, they said, we still have 800 and some $1,000 left. Let's pull number 2 off of the shelf. And number 2 off of the shelf was to drop the dollar amount, I think from 50 down to 20. So they got some folks there. Then this morning, Christine sent out a release that every commercial fisherman, if you've got a commercial fishing license and you live in the city of Kenai, you're eligible for $1,000. Again, it's not going to make you whole, it's not going to make you rich, but it'll pay for a couple of gallons of gas or milk for the kids or whatever. So if you do it that way, you have those opportunities. And again, we don't know what we're going to be facing. The one thing I would suggest that you do is, if you're going to leave it open till September, process them as they come in then. Don't sit and wait. But you're going to have to make sure that people know that it's first come, first serve.
Yeah.
And I have another question, Mayor. I'm glad to hear that the fishermen over there get some, and I'm hoping some of them do here also. But when you were saying that having 3 different ones, we only get 1/3 of the money to start with, don't we? We won't get the full group.
Correct.
So if you just have it open for 2 weeks, in my opinion, you're not going to be able to process them that fast because we won't have all the money unless
Correct, but that's
the
where
city waits.
Well, the city could turn in a claim instantly. I mean, we have, a substantial amount, so we would, that's where the budget really matters, is if you set a budget and we say, oh, well, we need to get 80% of that first check, yeah, that is an easy way to get a piece done, and you want to make sure you utilize every dime of the program.
It's an accounting piece, and.
Yeah, right, but I just know that
Yeah.
you said before that it was only gonna come in thirds.
Yeah, and the key number is 80%. You've got to be through the first 80% in order to ask for the second.
So Councilmember Cease, let me understand you, because you're worried that we would process people and not be able to pay them, but we could process people and then that would allow us to more quickly apply for more
Okay.
funds.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And I think I would recommend, like we've had a lot of discussions about the Sealife Center, if they go through this CARES Act, about putting that on like the third tier as like the last, so when we know more information, if that's necessary, it wouldn't be like, hey, tomorrow we're gonna put that claim in and spend the money. It would be a later tier.
Well,
Okay.
it has to wait till the matches.
Right.
Yeah, the end of September or October, whatever it's.
Councilmember Bakwan? I'll get to you folks on the phone next. Councilmember Bakwan?
I just had one, if we were looking back at the, it asked that you show proof on the application, show proof of your PPP acceptance. So do you still have to have that in the
Nope, you're just,
application?
yeah, I
So it's
know
striking
exactly where
that and all of
that
that
whole line
stuff.
is scratched. Number 2, I think it's number.
Page 19.
Page 15?
This one?
I think it's
So,
19.
that was number 2.
Oh, is it number 2 in the other? Yeah. Wherever PPP is scratched, is there, that whole line should go away.
And then the other
Number
one, what I
2.
had questions was this one, depending on business, no.
Yeah, page 15.
No, I think it's up a little further.
On 19?
15.
No, so let's not have crosstalk, but I think what needs to happen with whatever we do with
Yeah.
how the policy is outlined, then administration will have to go back and update the application and match.
Correct.
Yeah. So let me, and Councilmember Bakwan, if you have further questions, I'll get back to you, but let me call folks on the phone. Councilmember Kreitz, did you have any questions or comments?
Not at this time.
Thank you. If you folks on the phone do, just feel free to holler out and let me know. Councilmember Butts, did you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I had a question for administration. As we look at the process here, and we get turn it up. Any ideas, or trying to have an idea of how long this process is going to take? So once we get the application in, and then it gets reviewed, then the notice comes out, then the distribution. Any idea how long that's all going to take before we can get money into the hands of the people of Vigo?
I mean, I would guess 2 to 3 weeks would be a nominal process, get everything set up. Once we have the review done and finance gets a check run, that part is like the same day, literally. But we want to make sure that first check run is going to be reviewed and they're compliant. And so getting that set up is going to take, obviously if the state resources, if the SBA has resources, we do have our accounting interim representative that has staff that could do this as well. I don't know, if it matters one way or the other. Obviously, if there are state resources that are used to doing this type of process, it makes more sense to just utilize somebody that does it. But it shouldn't be more than 3 weeks. So if we open it up on Monday, I would hope that, what's that put us, about the 10th of August or so?
And we can, if we approve this tonight, then we can start accepting applications tomorrow.
Well, we
Right.
probably Monday. We would want to, so on the actual application, we need to put some of the details, like who do you contact, what's the email address? Are we gonna, between now and then, it would be nice if we knew, kind of line up who's gonna review it and who's, the SBA offer is very enticing. I think, we also have the capacity in our consultant to do that too. So,
But does the consultant cost and the SBA doesn't, or?
and they're both gonna charge.
They're both gonna charge. And then, so that leads me into my question. Councilmember Butts, I'll let you chime back in, but this is a kind of a follow-up. So, you talk about a committee. Who's gonna be on that committee and how quickly is that gonna be set up?
So that would be more geared towards the nonprofit. So essentially, we already know of several that have approached the council. It would be the nonprofit and then the nonprofits that would assist individual members in the community, like the foundation. We were, in the previous meetings, we actually discussed having that committee exist of like potentially the chamber director, a local business owner, Tim, if he would, if he would want to be involved, a council member, someone on, if someone wanted to volunteer, if you wanted to call out, but you want to make sure it's a good, diverse, rounded group that's going to be pretty impartial about, this is a pool of money, and then we would have them review the applications and the requests, come up with kind of a total, see where that shakes out, and then kind of reappropriate. And I mean, a lot of that's going to depend on, what is the nonprofit. If they're a nonprofit that has every year we take in $30,000 and they're asking for 40, that's not probably a realistic ask. So that's going to be vetting and kind of feeling out the applications we get. I think with the few that we have, it makes sense to actually ask them, what would you do and what do you need and what does that look like? And that you might get all of them and look at them and be like, yeah, that's all reasonable except for one, and we'll talk to them. And then if the budget is exceeding what the ask is, you could always reapportion that to business or to other uses if you determine. But I think setting the initial budget and the program is important, and then reevaluating when we get to that point of how do we redistribute. And later down the road, again, if you get into October, November, you want to try to get this kind of wrapped up before Thanksgiving, because as you get into December and the end of year, you don't want to have a bunch of money left in trying to contact people and allocate it. But at the same time, you want to get into September and be like, hey, we still have this chunk here that needs to be, bring it back to council, get some direction, and reassess where to put that.
I'm just going to go ahead and quickly, to get this off the table, I'm going to make a motion to change on page 9, the first tier from 50,000, or change it from 20,000 to 50,000. And also in that motion, since it's put forth by administration, is on page 15, strike item number 2 and then subsequently renumber. So I'll look for a second.
I'll second that.
Is there a further discussion, Councilmember Buckline?
Is that all in one motion?
Yeah. Do you want me to split it out?
Yes,
I can
please.
split it out. Okay, so I'll change my motion. The first thing I'll do is I'll just change, the first one I'll deal with is striking the item number 2, which is regarding the Paycheck Protection Program restriction on page 15. That's my first motion.
And I will second that.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that, Councilmember Buckline?
There's just one more thing. I think number 4 down, it refers back to the PPP again. So if we could strike, if you'd like to amend your motion to include that as well.
Page 16. Page 16, number 4.
Does not, page 16, number 4.
So we
what
want to-
documents? So I guess with my motion, what I'm saying is I'll just strike any,
Okay.
any PPP, restrictions within the entire document. So we know that that's on page 15, number 2, page 16, number 4. And then also the application will have to be updated, and I'm not gonna make those changes.
And I will second that.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Yeah, so that's
That
the.
one's correct.
Oh, well, okay.
Okay.
So this is just for taking the PPP out. Okay. Is there any discussion on the phone? Councilmember Kreitz or Councilmember Butts? Is there anybody?
No.
Am I missing?
No.
No, that's the only 2. Okay, thank you. Could we call for a vote, please?
Voting on the amendment to strike all PPP references. Butts?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Buckline?
Yes.
And Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That amendment is approved.
So then I'll do the second one, tier 1 on page 9 and any subsequent references, but I think it is correct on the application. Businesses need to be starting at 50,000.
And I will second
Second.
that.
So I think that when we've discussed that previously, the reason for that is because we want to make sure that these are businesses that people are earning their livelihoods. Like side gigs are one thing, but we want to make sure folks with having businesses and livelihoods that they're the first ones at the table. I don't know if, Councilmember Baclan, did you have any comments?
I know we talked about this at the, when we had our budget committee, and then after that, I had talked to a few people who were under the 50. I understand that we talk about like, if you think as a family, as a husband and a wife, or however your family structure is, and you look at that and you say, okay, well, that is what our business is, it's under 50,000. Or you look at another family who has one family member who sells some kind of art or whatever, and that's how that person makes their living for that summer, whatever it may be, or and that is a contributor to the household. And that's money that is either saved, that's extra money that's put into to whatever their household needs. I don't remember how the structuring went back before, how it was. I know that we doubled, so I don't know if anybody would be interested in doing the 1,500 between 20 and 50, and then 2,500 between 50 and 100,000. So that's the only thing that I would like to see, but and I know we talk about taxes and like it kind of being like a tax break, but I think we always think about, now we're flipping the way we think about taxes as we are paying taxes. We don't pay taxes. We remit taxes for the state. So the customer pays the tax, I remit that tax for the state, and then I make whatever else I make off of that. I'm not paying the tax. We always think of that so weirdly. Everybody kind of flips that around sometimes. So it's not a tax break. We're not giving you a tax break on what you pay for sales tax, because that's paid by the customer. Yeah. So when that's said, sometimes it spins me, because I'm thinking, yeah, it sounds like we would have paid that in taxes, but I'm not paying that in taxes. The customer's paying that.
So let's do this. Let's vote with the motion on the floor. And if that passes or not passes, we'll see if there's subsequent amendments. Councilmember Cease?
So you're just voting now on the 50,000 there?
20 to the 50.
20 to the 50?
Yeah.
Because I talked to a lot of them that they just kind of started their businesses, and they counted on this year as being a good one, and it's not. I mean,
so maybe I'll ask both of you what's the dollar amount?
So I will not support this amendment, because I would like to make I would like to make an amendment adding another tier. So a tier 1 from 20.
Okay, so here's the thing though. Let's talk to this motion.
Okay.
And we have on the record that if this passes or fails, you're going to be having a subsequent motion on an additional tier.
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Cease, did you have further comments? No. Okay. I'll check with folks on the phone. Councilmember Butts, do you have any comments?
No.
Councilmember Kreitz?
No.
Thank you. So let's take a vote on that motion, and then you're next on the floor. Thank you.
Voting on the amendment in tier 1 to strike 20,000 and change it to 50,000. Kreitz?
Yes.
Baclan?
No.
McClure?
Yes.
Butts?
Yes.
Cease?
yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That amendment is approved.
Councilmember Baclan?
Okay. I would like to amend the tier section to add tier 1 up to $1,500 for businesses with 2019 revenues of $20,000 to $50,000. Tier 1 up to $1,500 for businesses with 2019 revenues of $20,000 to $50,000.
Does it need a second? I'll second it.
Thank you.
So, Councilmember Butts, did you have any comments?
No.
Councilmember Kreitz, did you have any comments?
No.
Are there any comments in the room? I'll let you speak to your motion.
So just to what I was saying before, I guess I didn't disagree with your motion, but it was just adding another tier so that it would let some of the people at that $20,000 a year mark to $50,000 a year mark get something. Again, it's $1,500, not to make anyone whole, to help some, I think what we're not thinking about sometimes is like the people who set up booths and who are doing craft shows and who are doing all these things have been greatly impacted. No 4th of July. We don't even know what the winter looks like. No large gatherings, none of these things. And they have no outlet and who knows how much money they put into. I know a lot of those businesses, arts and crafts and stuff, put a lot of their money into it in the winter time and to make these crafts and when they have time and then to sell it in the summertime. And I just feel that is a really, at least to help them something, replace one of the craft fairs that didn't happen, or 4th of July that didn't happen, it got canceled from everybody. So that's where with respect to the last committee meeting, that's one thing I would like to see is to help a little bit more on the bottom. And maybe, we don't know how the business funding is going to go, so maybe this will get more of that spending out and more of the money used, which I would love to see too as well.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Cease?
So if it's not against his motion or anything, but if we have money left later on in the fall, can we go out again to try to get people
You
to apply
can,
for
but
us to get able to use it up?
So I think what we saw, at least talking to Paul Ostrander, they got a lot less people applied than they anticipated. They got about initially 10% of businesses even applied.
Really?
I think part of the thing to keep in mind is the restrictions, you have to have a business license in Seward. So as long as those craft people, I think every sales tax dollar is critical to the community, right? So they set a threshold because with the bigger communities, it also means a lot more applicants, right? So I think it's manageable here. We don't know until we send that out, but I think part of their vision was, I agree, the 20,000 is fine. It's just, you don't know until you get all the submitted requests, but I think, you're only going to get one submitted request. And depending on where you want to set that, I know I said that the borough set theirs on this program to 3.5%. So you're actually going to look at the tax documents, the third party that's evaluating it, and they're like, well, for up to $50,000, you get 3.5% back on what you claimed last year. Just like everybody's getting a check. Tim's, I don't want to confuse you.
No, you're not confusing me, but I think one of the things that you have to remember is I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. And again, it's part of your philosophy of your community and reaching out and helping other people. I don't see, and again, nobody's getting rich off of it, and somebody that's only making between 20 and 50 grand, they could use the $1,500, and you're going to have it. So go ahead and do it. And to answer your question, you can, if you have extra money, in October or November, you can roll out other programs. You can do other things. That's not and who knows what else is going to come out of this new thing that they're talking about down in D.C. There may be some additional dollars. Don't know, but I think it's a great concept.
Vice Mayor McClure?
Oh, I think it's a good idea too. Just remember, these are 2019 revenues. So somebody that just started this year probably wouldn't get that. And also, I was just doing some numbers. So with your 20,000 getting 1,500, that's 7.5%. And when you get down to the 500,000 person getting 10,000, that's only 2%. So it's like just something to think about, that we're
Stacked on the...
stacked on the lower end. It's just a number.
And I think that helps.
It makes it easier for us if you say, okay, if you meet this minimum threshold, you're going to get X amount, because then we aren't getting into the accounting and every little check's different. I think it makes more sense to do a prescriptive, but they still need to justify, hey, this is related and this is how.
Right, it has to be
COVID.
So, Councilmember Cease and then Councilmember Buckland.
I'm just wondering now, when we look at numbers, it says up to 100,000, and then revenues of 100,000 to 250. I really think you got to have a dollar under that, or well, one on the end of the other one, because what if somebody only makes the 100,000? Which one you gonna give them?
Okay, well, let's finish this
Okay.
and then talk about it. So is there any further discussion, Councilmember Buckland?
I want to thank Vice Mayor McClure for that point, because I'm willing to work on that number if nobody agree, if people have disagreements with that. So I'd love to hear from the people on the phone.
Councilmember Kreitz, do you have any comments?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Councilmember Butts?
No,
And I might just make a comment that, you know, I think those are the folks that maybe need a higher percentage of help, that might not have access to what these others, so we'll see if it passes or not, and then we'll take another brush at it. Are there any further comments in the room? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Voting on the amendment to create a new tier 1 and from 20 to 50,000 and move all other tiers down. Kreitz?
No.
McClure?
Yes.
Butts?
yes.
Buckland?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
And Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That amendment is approved.
Okay, I have another question, if I might jump in here.
Okay.
So, you know, Scott, I did talk to you and asked you, because I have some personal concerns with not having, you know, any specific programs for that city resiliency and recovery, that $750,000. So the borough, you know, came up with specific projects. I just need to hear, or have some, you know, I want some assurances that, you know, that money, so it behooves the city to not do anything so that they can use that money for operations. So I understand what Mr. Dillon's saying about, you know, like if there is a mental health crisis, or if there's something that comes up that we need to put a project towards, but who in your city is going to identify those projects and make sure that they're done for December? Because I don't see how that's going to happen.
So part of recovery and resiliency would be like if our partners, partner operations, the hospital, the clinic, additional assistance measures, our measures. I mean, if the city goes on closed down and has another huge, we're already literally at the point where we could claim all of the whole amount, right? We're trying to get a distribution where, you know, some of the communities are taking 2/3. We're proposing that we take about half of the total funding. I think what's important for the business people and everyone to understand is, yeah, they're down to 25% operations, which means their sales tax, their taxes, their money that comes to us to fund our operations is also that same proportionate this amount, which means we're not going to make budget, which means we have huge budget shortfalls. And we do have reserves. We got into that big discussion today because there's a misconception that the city has $37 million of money. In reality, it's not. The audit's almost done this week. It's draft audit. We're at about 5.1 to 6 months of reserves right now, but come late fall, I expect to be dipping into that just to keep our operations afloat. And so if we do nothing for the safe, we give it all out, and you get to, like Tim's saying, 3 to 5 years down the road, the mill levy is going to change, and everyone that has a business is going to be taxed a lot more heavily to cover these shortfalls. It's kind of pay me now or pay me later. So I think the misconception in general in the public is the city's taking all of our money, and it's like this was created to, the money that they have in other pools, like the 190 million, the city has access to this, and only this at this time. So that's really up to you. You're the ones that make the decision.
So based on that, I'm going to make a motion. We'll see if it flies. Based on that explanation, the new two tier 3, 4, and 5, I want to double all those amounts. So the new tier 2 goes from 2,500 to 5,000. The new tier 3 goes from 5,000 to 10,000. The new tier 4 goes from 7,500 to 1,500. And the new tier 5 goes from 10 to 20. And within that motion to fund that, I want to move that city resiliency and recovery, that $750,000 to the business recovery grant category. And if I get a second, I'll discuss that.
I'll second it.
Okay. So I know that's pretty radical, but I think at this point, so prior to that motion, we were at 32% of the funds going to the city, or going to businesses in the city. And I know it sounds like other communities are between 30 and 40%. And if we do this, then we're up to 46% of these funds will go straight into the businesses. And I think right now we need to play the long game. Like, we need to get this money out to protect and support our businesses so that people have their livelihoods and jobs going into this winter. Everything I stand on is the small businesses are the backbone of not only this community, but America. And I think that we need to do everything. If we have no current plans for city resiliency and recovery, this is the plan for city resiliency. The city resiliency plan should be put it into the hands of our private sector, let them get this money, have them be healthy as we start next summer. So that's my soapbox. I don't know if, I'll call folks on the phone too. Councilmember Butts?
No, I don't have any comments.
I didn't get him.
I didn't get
it. No, yes, Cheryl seconded it before I started talking.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kreitz?
No comment right now.
Okay. Is there anyone in the room that wants to make a comment?
That's okay, go ahead.
Councilmember Baclan?
I will support this, and I do think what we talked about earlier again was that if we approve this now and go through the process and make the funds available to the businesses, if we look back at this later and then we say, okay, maybe we didn't get to do this, we can roll back and reassess later and then put money after we've assessed what the businesses needed. We can't not take care of the businesses and then expect for everyone to come back here next year and spend and generate tax dollars if our businesses are closed. Yeah. How are they going to make it through the winter? How are they going to make it and survive the long haul? Everyone knows I work at the bar. We're not even open yet, but 50%. Almost every other business you look at, other than the restaurants and the bars, everyone's almost a essential business, right? Mm-hmm. Those businesses, everybody wants to go to the restaurant. Oh, what's open this winter, And we kind of look down on the businesses that are not open in the winter. And we got to really look to its businesses who, let's help you stay open in the winter. We want to have some place to eat safely in the winter, whether it be at 50% or wherever we're at. I agree with that 100%. And we can always go back and look at the situation later and reassess where we need to be at. The second thing I have to say is, really, that I do not see where the city has expended the money during this pandemic, during this whole thing. We look at, testing, and testing is done by the health clinic. Other than hours with our attorney and legal things coming over, I don't really see what the city is spending money on directly with this emergency. So, I don't see where the resiliency comes in, and I agree with that more, and I also don't agree with the administration cost of it, but that's totally different.
Vice Mayor McClure?
Well, yeah, this is new to me, this proposal. And I'd like to give all of it to the businesses and the nonprofits. I know the city needs some. The thing, as Councilmember Baclan said, we may not be allocating all of this money by all of the applications, and then that could come back. One should consider, however, if the city runs out of money, what are we going to cut? That's the dire prediction. But if the businesses run out of business and close, it's a delicate balance. I'm willing to take a chance on this, I think, and just see how it shakes out. We might be the one member of the peninsula, it sounds like, who would be giving more to businesses than the others, from what Mr. Dillon said. I'm willing to take a chance, I think.
Councilmember Cease?
Okay, we talk about what has the city cut. There's a lot of people out there that aren't employed because there's no businesses that can pay their wages. I know that some of them can be on unemployment, and with that, if they didn't get the PPP loan, then they didn't have the money to pay their employee that they had last year. So, but the city is full-staffed.
We're not fully staffed, but
Well, can I ask you then, is it because of this, or because we haven't gotten hired yet?
So we haven't filled a lot of the summer and seasonal people that we normally use. And that's, we have had more people from Alaska here than we normally do. So it's busier than most years for our staff, and they have small, it's council's direction. I mean, I'm going to implement whatever is
Mr. Dillon, did you have a comment?
I was just going to say, Christie, I love your proposal.
Oh, okay.
I seriously do.
Yeah.
Because again, it's putting money into the community, and those are numbers that hopefully will make a little bit of a difference to some of those folks. And again, you can always come out with second, other tranches of money.
Yeah, I guess just to end that, I want to see the bulk of these funds getting out to the community, and not only out to the community, but as quickly as possible. So that's what I'll say about my motion. So I'll just check on the phone if there's any final comments. Councilmember Butts, before we call for a vote.
No, none this time.
Councilmember Kreitz.
The only comment that I have would be, just my only concern, would be that the long-range outlook for the city. I just don't want to see 2 or 3 years from now our property taxes increase or, the mill rate go up. So I just wanted to keep that in consideration, as far as the city's finances go.
That's a good point. I think we're ready. Oh, Councilmember Buckland.
I mean, 2 times today, tariffs were mentioned, and tariffs don't change without a vote.
Property tax.
Yeah, property
Yeah,
tax.
They do.
Change without a vote?
I'm
It's a
not sure.
calculation.
Of the council.
mill
Oh, vote
levy.
of the council, yeah.
Yeah. Is that right, Brenda?
Mill rate.
By a vote?
Yeah, council normally sets the mill rate.
Yeah, I would think it,
Then is it sales tax that has to go on the ballot?
Okay, I'll
I
let,
can just speak to the borough. The mill rate's set by the borough assembly, the property tax mill rate in their budget, but I believe sales taxes have to go to a vote.
To the voter?
So if it's property mill rate, I don't know how the city hasn't changed it under my purview, I don't know, but I would think it would be a vote of the city council, not the public,
okay,
for property tax.
Thank you.
thanks. Madam Clerk?
Madam Mayor, just to be clear, all 5 tiers in this amendment?
No.
No.
Double?
The new
The
tier
new
2,
Tier
the
1
new-
would stay?
the new tier 1 stays as is.
Okay.
The new tier 2
right.
doubles, the new
Yeah.
tier 3 doubles, the new tier 4
That's
doubles, new tier 5. And then the city resiliency and recovery, those funds are moved into the business recovery
Okay.
grants.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Voting on that amendment, McClure,
Yes,
Butts,
Yes.
Kreitz,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Buckland,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That amendment is approved.
So the council member,
I would like to
Cease.
make a motion.
Yes.
Okay, I would like to have each one of those things with the dollar amounts between 20 up to 50, and then change that, the 50 or the 100 to the 1 on the end, so that they're $1 difference, the things.
So,
Each one of them.
so the previous
So,
will
Right.
end $1 lower.
No, the one
Start
higher.
$1 higher.
higher.
$1 higher.
Yeah,
$50,000,
you don't want
$1.
49.
Yeah, okay, so
Okay.
I'll second that. Is there a discussion on that? We're just cleaning up that there's not duplicate numbers. Councilmember Butts?
No, that's a good idea.
Okay, Councilmember Kreitz?
No.
Thank you. I think looking around, Madam Clerk, we're ready for a vote.
Okay, so voting on that amendment, McClure,
yes,
Cease,
Yes.
Buckland,
Yes.
Butts,
Yes.
Kreitz,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That amendment is approved.
So I just want to throw it out there for discussion. I don't necessarily have a motion yet, but I just want to check in with folks. You know, I guess my preference would be to have a 3-week, well, you know, I'm going to make the motion with all intents to vote for it, and so we can discuss it. So I'm going to make the application period outlined on page 19, instead of received or postmarked by 5 p.m. on September 25th, applications must be received or postmarked between July 20th and August 10th.
I'll second.
And so I'll just speak to that. I'm just making a motion to get it out there for discussion. You know, I guess my feelings are, if we have a finite time, and not 2 weeks, but 3 weeks, we have a 3-week finite time, then we know what we're dealing with. Everyone has a long opportunity. I mean, today's the 15th, so the administration would have to hot foot it, but they would have, you know, a number of days before Monday to get the information out there. Businesses would have a 3-week window to respond. Then we would know exactly what we were dealing with. We can get that money quickly out on the street. You know, then we'll know where we're going to be, instead of letting it all wait until the end and then trying to come up with, you know, I just think we'll be in a better picture, because I do not want to leave any dollars on the table at the end of this. We should take advantage. And then the other thing, maybe I'll put my hopes in that there might be more money coming. So the more money we've expended, I'm hoping that there's future opportunities. So that's my argument. But I'm happy. I guess I'm not totally tied to that, so I'd love to hear more discussion. I'll go to the phones first. Councilmember Butts, what are your feelings on the application period and the motion I made?
I like this, they're getting to, that was my question that I was going after too. Any way that we can make this a smoother, faster process, the better.
Councilmember Steves?
I would not like to have it a little longer than that, being the business I had. You know, like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays are very, very, very busy. And I know for a fact that all the clients that I used to have will depend on me, or whoever the accountant is, to do it for them. And that's just not enough time for, I would not like to have to get it all done.
Okay, let's hear everyone's discussion, and maybe I'll have a secondary motion. Vice Mayor
I
McClure?
just sort of, a general question, how extensive is the application? To me, it looks like a pretty simple form, but you still have to prove your income, and that's the issue you're saying?
Yes.
That how could you not know your income?
For me, I would know it, what
Within-
mine was, but I gotta tell you, they depend on the bookkeeper to do the work
But
for
I mean,
them.
within those ranges
do
though?
Yeah, well, I can't tell you what any of my clients made last year, or the year before, or the year before. It's just a number to me. So I'd have to get their tax return out and look at it, you know, and that takes time, and fill it out. The 90% of them won't fill their own out.
Okay, just a question.
Councilmember Buckland?
That's great, and maybe there's some nonprofit here that's willing to help people with that, or somebody who has time. I think, looking through all of this stuff, the chamber has said numerous times, reach out to us, let's get together, let's make plans, let's get everything out in public, and let us help you. They are our marketing arm. We should be depending on them to get more of our information out and working together with them, rather than them having put information together and the city put information together. Just working together more to get that information out. They know the businesses, you know. I think the administration should rely on them more to get the word out. And they've asked, you know, to do that. And and I hate picking on Tim and Jason all the time, but that's who our business people are, to get that word out. So
I understand that, and then maybe that is the way to go, to have not the accountant do all the work.
So I'll just check on the phone. Councilmember Butts or Councilmember Kreitz, do you have any further discussion with this? Okay,
No, I don't.
thank you. Madam Clerk?
Voting on the amendment to change the application postmark date to July 20th to August 10th. McClure?
Yes.
Butts?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Cease?
No.
Bachlan?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That amendment is approved.
So, I'll go ahead and make a second amendment to change the end date of that 3-week to August 12th, which is a Wednesday at 5 p.m.
Could
I
be
was
on
second.
Friday. No, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna see it on Friday.
Oh, I'll second.
Okay, second. Well, and I guess I chose the Wednesday because I really feel like we want to get these funds out as soon as possible to these businesses. But it doesn't
understand.
sound like it wasn't quite enough.
Well, I said Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays are the busiest days on any account
Okay.
with the summer payrolls.
So maybe my motion will fail. We'll call for a vote.
So voting to extend the postmark date to August 12th.
That's a Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday.
Yeah. Butts?
Yes.
Bachlan?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Cease?
No.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That amendment is approved.
Okay, so, that is a lot of work for administration to get, all the notices out. Today's the 15th, so that gives you guys 5 days to work with everyone and get all the information out on the application period. So, and everyone in this room needs to talk to their friends, and businesses need to help each other get that out. I'll look to the phone. Councilmember Butts, did you have any further comments or amendments on what we're doing tonight?
Nope, I got all my questions answered.
Councilmember Kreitz?
No.
Thank you. I'll look around this room. Vice Mayor McClure.
I just have a question, and it may be a silly one, but on page 9, third little paragraph from the bottom, it says businesses that are not required to file sales tax returns with the borough must provide a copy of their most recent federal tax forms. Who doesn't have to pay borough tax? I don't know.
I can explain that. It's not that they don't pay borough tax. It's that if you are a commercial or a sport fishing guide and you're using a firm, say like I don't even know what they call it.
Booking.
A booking agent, if you're using a booking agent. Because what happens is the booking agent is who's filing those, for those taxes.
Oh.
So you just have to prove that, you actually paid it and it went to him, but their name is what's going to be on the
I had
borough.
no idea.
And I only learned it because of, it was a mess down in Homer, so.
Okay,
Isn't it-
okay, thank you.
I believe it's
Councilmember
the,
Bachlan.
I believe it's the same too for like people who have rental agents.
Yes.
Yep, so,
Okay.
anybody that has that other layer in there.
Oh, sorry.
Can I ask, just bring your attention to 2 things and ask for consideration? On page 9, there's reference to, obviously, that people need to have a business license in the city of Seward. Can I ask that that you define a date, as of a certain date they have a business license? Because the way the program works is if there's no defined date, then people could just apply. Would you accept somebody that's underway?
It says that they have to be in business.
January 1st, 2020.
Yeah, January 1st, 2020. That's in a different spot of the document.
Well, the
It's on
city
page 9.
allows renewals to, for year-round businesses. Their deadline is January 31st, so that's a discrepancy, as I see it. I can't.
I think we just want to make sure they're in good standing, or like if they've never had a business license in Seward, that would get them kicked out.
So where is that date? Let's look at how that date reads.
It's
for-
right in the
Right
middle.
here.
Page 9.
No, I see where that is, but, oh, I see above, must be in existence of January 1st, 2020 to qualify.
We might put December 31st.
So businesses, and
I
then,
mean,
And the seasonal business renewal date isn't until May 1st.
I can tell you that a variety of communities have wrestled with those dates. I think Kenai is March 1st. I think Soldotna has gone back and forth, and again, I think most people have landed on the beginning of the year, you know, that January 1, but they've also had the flexibility to make sure that, you know, that if it's going to expire and the person hasn't renewed it, well, there's a difference. Then
yeah. Councilmember Buckland?
Would that be, Scott, something that the committee would review and like kind of?
this would be done by the, so literally, I don't want all these floods of applications, people's tax forms, all of this proprietary, private information. It would go to a website, it would be scanned. They would have resources to help navigate and answer questions, but it wouldn't be the committee on the business piece. It would be, you know, the agency that we contract with, or it would be the SBA recommendation. It would be a third party that deals with taxes and confidentiality and all that.
I can furnish a list as that anyone who's licensed through December 31st of 2019.
Well, they need that, but they also need to have a current business license.
Right.
So those two things, because we don't want a business that stopped, you know, that moved away last year and has no intention of, had no intention of
That's
being
true.
here
Okay.
this year.
That's
Okay,
true.
I can, those two pieces.
Yeah.
Okay. The other question I have is, on page 19, the question number 6, my business does not have a permanent physical presence. A lot of businesses on their business license application do work on site. So it's not a permanent physical presence, but they still can be a licensed person, like a contractor or something. So I just want to point that out.
Right. Or this-
Vice Mayor
This
McClure.
came up, something like this came up when we were talking about charter boats, and if they don't have an office, but just the boat,
The
or
boat itself.
ecotourism businesses that have a slip,
Or-
food truck.
Or food truck.
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
that there's not a brick and mortar place, but they're doing business. So I don't know,
So in order to get a city license, they have to declare where they're doing business.
Right.
But that doesn't mean
It's permanent.
they have a building or,
So that's an interesting question, because the question is, my business does not have a permanent physical presence. So if you say yes, it does not, but if you say no, it's a double negative.
Does it? Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
So is that how they frame that question in other
the rest of them are
applications?
yes questions, or no,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just interesting, because
It's a
it's
bad
like when we vote, we,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
it should really read, my business has a,
Physical or.
Permanent physical
Permanent.
presence.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily,
but they won't, but if you answered yes, that disqualifies you. Probably why it's written that way.
oh,
Yeah, it's kind of goofy.
those are all negative, yeah. Oh.
I mean, we could strike that question
Oh,
since
because
it's
you
really-
want it all to say no.
Correct.
Yeah, you want them all to say no. Well, I guess that's easier to,
Strike it.
It would seem to me that if you have a business license in the city of Seward, you would have
Yeah.
some kind of presence with your
Within-
business in the
yes,
city of
that's
Seward.
true,
I
that's
think we
true.
should just strike
Let's-
that question,
Okay.
perhaps. Or be flexible in when you get the applications, but it's going to create a kind of kettle of worms, because you're going to get some of the wrong answers for that, and it will bounce, you know what I mean? It'll take some time to read it.
I would probably suggest taking it out
um,
since there's not a
Is
lot.
there-
Qualifying them on the basis of having a business license.
Right.
That sort of takes care
A
of it.
current business license.
so I just want to talk this through.
Yeah.
So if someone has a business license because they're doing a home occupation, but, okay, go ahead.
I think it's important to somewhat keep this question
Yeah.
in because it's just like being a member of the chamber, but you don't live or do business
Yeah.
in Seward.
Right.
You're just trying to like get that benefit
Yeah,
of it. So you can have a business license here, but you may not necessarily do business here. Like, does the tour buses have to have a business license here if they're picking and dropping off people, but they are not
yeah.
business owners in Seward? Or, that's how I'm asking, you know, so.
Then,
Vice Mayor McClure?
by this question, how would the tour bus operator qualify for this money?
They would not, and that's what we want. Like, say it's Bach Limousine out of Anchorage.
We don't.
They might come in and pick people up, but they would say, my business does not have a permanent physical presence. Yes, we do not have, so that would exclude them, which is what we want to happen.
But the tour bus operator who drives the buses all
Here.
the time, even if, say, they park them outside the city limits, they would qualify?
They're licensed.
If
But-
they're-
Oh, and this other outfit you're talking
Oh,
about
well, I
is
was
not
thinking even
licensed?
if Bach Limousine got a business
How do, I
license.
mean, it's the differentiation,
But, yeah. So that's a question too, because what if people live outside city limits? Do they apply for the borough funding or the city funding?
Borough.
But if they're
Correct.
doing
So-
business exclusively in the city,
They would still
If-
apply for the
so
borough funding.
So that's where it's kind of weird, because the businesses in the borough are eligible for this program in the borough. And if they do their business here, they're eligible under our stuff here. They're not eligible for borough monies through the city. Does that make sense? Like
No.
even though the borough, I don't want to get into that.
Councilmember Cease?
What if you take that number 6, move it down underneath where it says, do you intend to remain in business in 2001? That won't include those no's up here.
I guess my opinion is I think we should leave it as is. I've seen this question in a number of other applications, and I think we're just overthinking it at
Yes.
this point. Because I think we're covering the charters, we're covering, the people that have booths. I think that we need to,
we are covering them even though they would answer
if they have
no.
my business does not have a physical presence, at some point, they would have a physical presence
Right.
in the city.
Permanent physical presence.
Oh, permanent physical presence.
Yeah.
And if you answer yes, you're disqualified.
So here's an example. So here's why I think we need to leave it in. So say someone lives in the city and has a booth that they travel all around the state with, including Seward, but they live in the city. They would be eligible because their home that they list on their business license is their permanent physical presence. However, if those folks lived out in Cuesta Woods and did the same thing, they wouldn't, even if they brought their booth in, their physical presence would be outside the city limits and they would be applying for borough money?
So it's going to come down to, they have to have a Seward license,
Yeah.
and they have to prove through the borough or through our taxation that they've paid Seward taxes.
Yeah.
So really, it's irrelevant as long as they're paying our taxes.
I think this is in here to make sure that we are just funding Seward businesses and not funding businesses outside our city limits.
Unless you want to.
Right.
And the only reason I bring that up is I haven't seen any businesses funded that way, but nonprofits have been funded that way. For
this-
example,
Yeah.
Boys
the
and Girls
food
Club.
bank outside of city limits over in Kenai and Soldotna. They're going to be able to get money from Kenai, Soldotna, and from the borough.
Yeah.
And they need it, and the food bank really needs it. But, again,
So
Yeah,
we'll
you're
be
right.
able to look at that process through the
Correct.
committee.
correct.
Absolutely.
And
So there's no motion on the table, we've discussed it. Is there anyone that would like to make a motion? I'll look at Councilmember Butts. Did you have a motion to make, or Councilmember Kreitz within this discussion?
No.
I know, Sue, do we need to take a 5-minute recess to wrestle with it, or how are you feeling?
Well, I still don't quite
I
understand
don't
it, but I don't know that a 5-minute recess will help.
Well, okay.
So let it be.
Well, I will say this, if administration identifies a problem, now that we have a really tight application period, it needs to be brought back to council to fix a problem.
Okay, sure.
Mr. Dillon.
The other thing you need to remember is you do have an appeal process.
Right,
So
okay.
that's where the appeal process works.
Yep.
So,
Okay,
Good
so
point.
that's also a backstop, okay, thank you. I'm looking around, you just took a deep breath, Councilmember Buckwan, did you have anything else to add?
I just a question for the city manager on the $250,000 for the administration costs for it. It just seems between, I mean, we're halfway through July, so August, September, October, November, December. For 5.5 months, $250,000 in administration costs to administer the money. I didn't come up with a percentage, but I mean, even 10, looking at other nonprofits and the way they handle money, it's either around 3 to 7% for administrative costs. And I understand that part of it would be for legal review, but still, I feel $250,000 is a lot. And if you could tell me about how the breakdown of that and how you think that money would be spent and how many hours, just to kind of give us a rough idea of, $250,000, $250,000 for administration, just to come up with, administering it, getting the money out, and I mean, I'm all for getting out as quickly as possible. It just seems a little excessive for $250,000.
So this entails all the city activity, you said legal, finance, to run this piece if there's a cost of overhead. This is all of the non-payroll expenditures the city has done to date. So anything with EOC, supplies, modifications to facilities, buildings, anything that's not personnel related, like in section 1. So these are, I mean, I keep getting this feeling that you're like, how come, administration put these in? These are the categories that the grant created, and you're supposed to, like, if you have a need or fit that piece of the puzzle, these are pre-identified. So we basically allocate the funds to those sections. And you're right, this might, so most of our administrative costs and COVID-related expenses went on the credit cards, because it was all online purchases. I have to get every department head, because there was no coding set up when we started this during that time frame. We have to go back and actually highlight all the credit card statements if we want to claim this. Most of the personnel, payroll, all those things are easy to do in our accounting system. This would be pretty much anything with the market modifications, materials, supplies, and there's been a lot. I think some of the stuff I'm hearing is not quantifiable, like they're saying you can't pay and get reimbursed for hand lotion and all this. I don't know if that's true or not, but so it's basically, I don't know, that where we're at without doing all the supplies and things we purchased, we're over $50,000 just in the query that we ran last time it was asked of us to do that. So I mean, I don't know if it's a little too much. Again, we come back and we redistribute the leftover.
Mr. Dillon.
If you'd like to compare it to other places around the borough, and also, I've got a decent amount of experience in this kind of stuff. I understand the percentages that you put out there for nonprofits, but there's always some interesting accounting when you do that. I can tell you that when we ran our numbers to try and figure out how to help people and things, we were right around the 12.5% to 13% as far as what it was going to take to get monies out the door. I can tell you the state stuff, like with Credit Union 1, they've got a baseline plus 8%. So I don't see this number as being way out of line, especially because there are checks and balances in the system. It's not as if you're giving him $250,000 saying, go spend it. There's checks and balances in the system, but I think you're going to find that number, I don't think it's too heavy.
I think Kenai's was 750.
Councilmember Cease?
So under this 250, that's just for the expenses that you've spent already. Is this the one that where you're gonna have somebody in the city administer the money out?
The whole,
But if we decide to have somebody else come in and do it, you know, like the community foundation or something like that to do the issuing of it, then the city wouldn't get that, that would be part of it. But then we'd have to pay the community foundation for doing it, correct?
the third party would be paid, correct, but
Out of
it,
this 250?
correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So, I think we're kind of getting where we need to be. I'll check one more time. Councilmember Butts and Councilmember Kreitz, any further comments on the, resolution in its whole?
No, no.
Thank you. Any other comment? Thank you. Any other comments around here? Madam Clerk, I think we're ready for a vote.
Okay, voting on the main motion to approve resolution 2020-055 as amended. Cease,
Yes.
Buckland,
Yes.
Butts,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Kreitz,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is citizen comments. Madam Clerk, do you have any folks signed up for citizen comments?
I do not.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is council administration comments. Scott, I'll throw it to you first for administrative comments.
I really want to thank Tim for being involved and helping us navigate this. It's not been easy. Everybody's kind of hit hurdles on this as we move through it. We're trying to do the best we can, and hopefully we partner and get this in people's hands as quickly as possible. That's the intent, and that's what thank you. We got it laid out in front of us, and we will make it happen.
Excellent. I love that. Mr. Dillon, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I just want to let you guys know I'm really proud of what's going on here on the Kenai Peninsula. And it makes me feel really good when I go up in front of yesterday was House Labor and Commerce, and today was with a couple of the commissioners, and for me to be able to tell them that out of municipal relief money, the communities and the borough has put up close to $30 million to try and help our businesses, and that's really amazing. And I know this is something different, and everybody's got questions and things, but everybody needs to trust each other and understand that nobody's getting rich off of this. Nobody's even being made whole. And there's going to be some mistakes. There's going to be some things. And I don't see anything in here that can't be fixed. And hopefully you guys understand KPED is here for you all. We will continue to spend time over here to try and help some of the businesses that I didn't get to today. And for those that called me this afternoon and I didn't get a chance to visit you, I apologize. But we'll keep plugging ahead. But great job. I think this is a good package for the community.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll start with folks on the phone. Councilmember Kreitz, I'll let you lead off with comments if you'd like.
I would just like to say I'm glad that we got this passed, and I'd like to thank administration for their work and Tim Dillon for clarifying a lot of things for us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good stuff. Councilmember Butts?
No, I'm just really happy we got this done there too, and just a big shout out to everybody, their help with this one too, and all the council members who really have done a lot of homework with this one too. I think that's really great to get this done, and hopefully we can get this process out there and give people need help. Mindful and wash your hands.
Wash your hands. Councilmember Cease?
I want to thank Tim Dillon for all the work he's done. He's really helped my daughter out, I know, long distance. And so I think anybody has a question to give him a call. I know he doesn't really want his phone number out there, but
It's out there.
it's out there now. And I really am proud of our council for getting this ready to go, and the city for all the work.
Councilmember Buckland?
I'd like to thank Tim as well. Just a wealth of knowledge and business help, and I know as a former businessman, former business person, it is very helpful. And knowing that we can refer people to you and to your organization, Economic Development District. I'd like to thank Mayor Terry especially tonight for doubling down on the businesses tonight and showing that Seward is going to put our money into you as much as we can and that we are standing behind you. And that being said, please, if you are sick, stay home. If you have the virus, stay home and quarantine. We don't need to be pointing fingers and watching people, and we could just be responsible and take care of each other. We're halfway through summer, and it is crazy. And everybody who's been asking questions and calling us lately about this, I'm sure we're still gonna get lots more calls. So please call us and let us know how you feel and what you think and how this process goes along. I no longer have my business, so I won't be applying for these loans or for the grants, but if you have any questions and there's anything I can help you or any comments about the process, let us know as well, so that we can be on top of it and we can help you and help fix the problems as they are happening rather than waiting and letting them pile up. So I hope everybody is rejuvenated by this, and let's get through summer and get back to work and keep moving. So thank you.
Vice Mayor McClure?
Okay, well, I want to echo the thanks to Tim and to the administration for putting this all together. I think we made some really good changes tonight to get more money out to the businesses. I'm aware there's a whole lot of misinformation and, people just not knowing what's what, and then it amplifies itself. So I'm hoping there will be very clear direction somewhere for people put out from this. And it should be clearly stated to people somehow in this, if you are one of those businesses that falls in the cracks of that question we were asking, if you live out of the city but you do entirely all your business in the city, whom do you apply to? That should be somehow clearly stated somewhere, because that's not clear to me.
That's a good point.
I guess we did good work tonight, and I want to thank everybody for that.
Well, I'm just going to echo everyone's thanks. Tim Dillon, a national treasure. Chamber, Aisha, and Jason have been doing a lot of hard work with businesses. Definitely administration, trying to track all the changes and the people getting in trouble. The attorney, making sure that we were doing everything the way we should be doing. So the hard work. And knowing that it's not easy and there's even harder work to come. So we definitely appreciate our staff. I did want to make one other comment. So just so everyone in Seward knows, the borough mayor is starting his, ramp up into the election season. So he will be here Saturday from 1:30 to 5:30 at the Adams Street Pavilion. And I want everyone to go and remind that borough mayor that they used our sales tax to justify their CARES Act funding, but are not at this point remitting any of that money to help our businesses or nonprofits within our city limits. And I know that our city manager and other city managers around the borough have been trying to advocate for people within organized cities to get that money, especially since the borough used that to get the level of money that they have. So please, businesses, folks that love businesses, you all need to go down there and talk to the borough mayor and let him know that Seward is not happy about that, especially at this point when he is looking for our votes. So there's other things you need to talk to the borough mayor about. You need to make sure that he is clear. Every parent, every teacher should social distance and go down there and make sure that he funds our schools at the top level, that he doesn't gyp our schools this coming budget season. We need to make sure that he understands we are looking to the borough for help with our airport and moving the Resurrection River, that they pay attention to our roads. And also, you need to tell the borough mayor that, KPED is funded out of their budget. That's a contract that they have, and you need to go and tell him how important it is to our community. I'm going to be posting on Facebook maybe some other suggestions that you should go talk to the borough mayor about, but this is the time when he wants our votes that we make sure that Seward's represented at the borough level. And so that's all I have. Thanks. I will adjourn.
Don't forget the
I wanted you
census.
to say the census.